like to call to order the Wednesday, December 10th, 2025 meeting of the Tenino Planning Commission. Let the record show that all commissioners are present with the exception of William Bennett II. Okay, let's do the housekeeping. Take a look at this agenda.
Okay, I'd like to add my resignation to the agenda for new business.
Okay.
Second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Did you make a motion to approve the agenda with that change? Or did you just?
Yes, I will move to approve the agenda as amended.
Ah, yes. Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Just in case.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Okay, meeting minutes from last time. I was absent, so I won't vote. Maybe we can't actually vote on this thing.
I think you all just vote.
But looks,
Otherwise, we don't have enough votes.
yeah, I realize that. But
Yeah. I will move to approve the meeting minutes.
Do you want a second?
Oh,
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can move.
sorry. Catching up. Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. No public here to comment. Do we have any reports from the administration? Did they vote to approve the
Yes.
comp plan? They did. Did they change anything?
No.
All right then. Okay, no public hearing, unfinished business. Now let's talk about the proposed draft code revisions. Turn it over to Melissa.
Thanks. Okay, so as part of the comp plan update, we have to update the critical areas ordinance to ensure that it's compliant with the GMA and all applicable rules and regulations, including best available science. And so what I've done is I've started that process. The draft that you have in front of you is still going to change slightly. One of the questions that I have is one of the, and I'll go through it, but one of the things that we have to update is the riparian area best available science. And there, I was talking to a lawyer for another jurisdiction who's worked on a couple of different critical area ordinances, and we actually have two options. So the one that Fish and Wildlife is recommending is the site standard or site specific tree height, which is essentially a tool that the Department of Fish and Wildlife has put out that measures the height of trees around the riparian areas, so streams, things like that, around the city. They did it across the state, and then they essentially tell you what that tree height is, and then you have a buffer that's associated with that. The other option is that we can do a 150-foot standard buffer for all riparian areas. The benefit of doing the site potential tree height is that we can have the buffer reduced in some areas where there's no trees or limited function, which is not completely applicable to the city of Tenino, which is why I bring up that other option. The site potential tree height minimum is 100 feet, with the maximum generally being 250 or 300. Whereas the other one would just be a standard 150 across the board. The buffer uses, anything like that would still be the same, but it would just be how we essentially measure the buffer, or require that the buffer be measured every time a riparian area is likely going to be impacted for during development.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
The site specific, is that a burden? Sorry. The site specific, is that a burden on the individual building, or is that a burden on the city to do the measuring and the determination?
It's on the applicant.
Okay.
So the city has all of the tools that are provided through the agency. So it doesn't necessarily cost us anything to do that on behalf of the applicant. However, the burden is on the applicant to provide a critical areas report that includes that information. And if the area is not on the map, like it's not measured by Fish and Wildlife, which there are some areas on there, then they would have to essentially contract a forester to go and, or a forest biologist, something like that, essentially a qualified professional to measure it's like the tallest tree on the parcel. There's a whole bunch of parameters, and if we do put it in there, then I'll explain all of that. But I wanted to also provide that we can do just 150 foot, which does also make it a lot easier and usable for most of the residents and anybody who's doing development within the city, and then also their planners. It's completely just whatever your guys' preference is, because both are supported by the best available science. And pretty easily implementable. And I've already spoken to a couple of jurisdictions in regard to the site potential tree height, and so I have kind of have a monologue presentation that I have put together for it.
It's like an online kind of program.
Yes.
Is it already out there?
Yes.
We can go look at it. What they would recommend for Skyler Creek right now in tonight?
Yes, and also, this is just a copy of the guidelines that Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife put out. And so, it's pretty straightforward. However, a lot of jurisdictions have it's been about 50-50 for jurisdictions that I've seen that either go with the 150 foot standard or they do the site potential tree height.
What's the maximum potential buffer that you could get from this program, do you think? Is it going to be more than 150 feet?
Yeah. Yeah.
For like a really highly functioning riparian wetland area?
Yeah.
Provides a lot of shade and all that stuff. That's like, those are the things.
Yeah, essentially the taller the trees and the healthier the trees are on the property and the more of them is the bigger the buffer. And then as we go down in the health and the height of the trees that have been established, the buffer shrinks. But it's never less than 100 feet.
Right.
So I have played with the Department of Fish. Is it Fish and Wildlife?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I played with Fish and Wildlife's tool like 3 years ago or something like that when
when it first came out.
When it first came out, there was stuff going through the legislature, and the job I was at the time was calculating what is the potential buffer based on proposed legislation for property owners in certain areas. And it was very uncommon to have a buffer on the west side of the state that was less than 150 feet. Which, I mean, and I'm totally on board with protecting wetlands and wildlife, but I also want to maximize the ability for landowners to use what they've got. So, just based on playing with this in the past, I would lean more toward it's like a standard 150 or whatever the site tree height is, right? We have to decide on one of those?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Can we run it for the town and see if we like it, or
Yeah, that's.
is that?
We can.
Yeah.
I can do a
test.
You can just go
scenario.
on there and do it right now. Okay. I don't know.
I feel like I'd be curious to see what the potential impacts are based on what we know of town and how the proximity to our riparian area. I mean, gosh, Scanner Creek's right there.
I mean, it's all built up to the creek, as close
Yeah.
as I would dare go in most of the places in town, I
Well,
think.
some places.
I mean,
I'm
you
like,
can look at it right now.
yeah,
It's like-
why would you build that?
Yeah.
It's suboptimal
Yeah.
in a lot of
That,
places.
that poor little house by the bridge over there,
Yes.
it's like 10 feet away from their foundation basically at this point, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I'm thinking about is because we're so close to the creek, and also because we have a motivation to be able to develop and allow more people to move into town. I think the standard 150 would be more approachable for people to do future development. And it seems like 150 is about an average of what you would be calculating anyway on the other one. Like,
Yeah.
it seems like a safe and simple solution. I'm sure that if there are areas like larger cities or that could have more development as an advantage because they had a more diverse range of landscape, it might make more sense to do the Fish and Wildlife option, but because pretty much our entire city is right next to Sky Creek,
Yeah.
I think it feels like it would probably end up being
It is.
mostly the same anyway.
But that's, yeah, and also that's just for the stream buffer, right? But the riparian area is wetland, and most of that is probably has a bigger buffer than 150, right? And throughout town.
Yeah, the average that I've seen, and I haven't looked at specifically Tenino in a hot minute, but overall, every time I go into the system, the average is generally about 200.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's larger, very rarely is it smaller, except for in like certain aspects where it is, there's just no trees. But part of the consideration that I would say is that Tenino already has an environmental residential zoning. And so we do already protect along that corridor. And so having the 150 on top of that, I think it equips us well to have an easier time with development. And then we also don't have to worry about the different types of streams. It's all the streams and all of the water courses through the city of Tenino that are mapped. Granted, the one that we think of the most is Scatter Creek, but we do have some small tributaries that go through. And then in those cases, we would probably be looking at a variance, which, I mean, if it's a tree, if it's a forested area, they're going to be looking at a variance anyway, because they're probably going to be requesting a reduction. So either way, they'd be looking at a reduction request through the variance process.
I'm also leaning towards the 150. I think it just gives the opportunity for easier development standards.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obviously all for protecting the riparian area, and I think our climate element of the comp plan does a lot of work to kind of work towards repairing several things that have just gone astray. But I think this allows anyone to come in to know what they're looking at. And frankly, a tool can update any time, and that can only make it more confusing for people, where 150 can be 150 until it's changed. And that goes through a larger process, I believe.
Maybe that makes sense. Does the tool incentivize cutting down tall trees by the creek before you go to develop
Well,
it?
that's
Just kind of curiosity.
Yeah.
No, not necessarily, because it's when it was established, and I don't know how often they're going to be updating it. But I would say that it's very unlikely that it's going to be on a regular basis, as we've seen with floodplain maps. Most environmental maps aren't updated that often. So we'd probably be seeing anywhere from maybe 5 to 10 years where they actually update it.
Mira, do you play with it? What kind of buffers do you remember were you seeing around here? Or?
So I was mostly looking, I think I did a lot up and around like Snohomish, King County sort of areas, and down in Clark County. And most of those areas had like 175 to 250 based on the specific tree that they were going off of on that plot of land. A lot of it seemed a little bit arbitrary to me. Just looking at it, being totally honest, I was like, really, a Doug fir there? Interesting. But with that said, yeah, 175, 250, somewhere around there.
Do you think that they'll make us go to this at some point? It's just not ready yet? Or?
That's a great question. Honestly, the department is really pushing the adoption of the site potential tree height. And if you ask them, it's required. However, I've discussed with other jurisdictions who have had approvals through the department with the 150. So right now, it's not completely required because the 150 still kind of aligns with the best available science. However, they prefer it, but there's no mechanism to enforce it right now.
And they're not offering any incentive to adopt it either, I guess.
Throughout the rest of the county, are there like other towns and cities that have adopted this site, like this tree plan or the 150? Like, what's the environment around us like when it comes to development and the requirements that they
I
have?
haven't done that research, but I can definitely look.
Okay. I would just be curious because we have so many like contractors and people developing around
Yeah.
that if they're already familiar with it and it's already kind of and it's eventually going to be the thing, then I'm less nervous about it being a prohibitive factor.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, they're gonna have to pay for the critical areas report anyways, and so it's the contractor, whoever gets picked, that's gonna have to use this thing.
Yeah.
That is true.
Or go with the 150 or not. It's probably gonna be like super easy for them to go either way. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the 150 is like a boilerplate paragraph, and this takes like, doesn't sound like it takes very long. But
Yeah. I'd be interested to see if all of the tributaries in Tenino are mapped, because I think that would be, because you make a good point, like they're gonna have to do one or the other. It's drawing a map based on the code. But I think if Tenino is all mapped, then I don't necessarily, I can understand that it would just be pulling that data.
yeah, it'd just be another paragraph in their report.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can definitely do the research in regard to what the other cities are doing with their critical areas ordinance updates, and then provide a water course map and see what the site potential tree height maybe averages out in the city of Tenino.
Yeah, I'd like to play with it.
Yeah.
I'd
That
like
would
to
be
help.
helpful.
I've never heard of this thing, so.
And we don't have to make a decision tonight, right?
Nope.
This is just kind of
This is just a discussion.
nice.
All right.
And then, so most everything else, as far as changes go for the critical areas ordinance, are just nuance updates to clarify, or like we already, so for example, no net loss is essentially a required language in the critical area code, but we call it equivalent or greater function. So it's things like updating or changing equivalent or greater function to no net loss. So all of the paragraph stays the same, but we just change what that like section is essentially called, so that it aligns. And then adding some validity clauses. So essentially, it says like wetland delineations are good for 5 years. Wetland ratings are good for 5 years unless the city reviews and says otherwise. So that gives us the onus when we're reviewing it. It's maybe an 8-year-old document, but we know we've been out on the property. We know it hasn't changed that much. Then we can say, yes, we'll accept this, or we can send it to ecology and get their opinion. And the nice thing about that is when we send it to ecology, specifically wetland delineations, is it's reviewed for free, and they do it just in partnership with the city. And so it does take a little more time, obviously, in review because we're sending it to an agency, but they have subject matter experts that can review it and let us know if we're missing something or if it just doesn't feel right. And so that's
For
not.
like an 8-year-old one, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Or for anyone.
Honestly, anyone. If it feels hinky, because one thing that I've learned over my planning career is that not all scientists will write reports that are true to fact. Sometimes they are paid by applicants and will skew things. And I'm not saying they all do it, and I'm not calling out anybody. However, it does happen, and I've seen it, and so it's usually pretty obvious in the reports. And so one of the things that we can do at any time is contact the Department of Ecology and have them review it, and then ask for their input.
Okay.
Interesting.
So, but we see that across reports for almost anything. So.
I had always heard that it was 5 years. I didn't know you could do like an older wetland delineation or use it.
I think that's the update.
That is the update. Yeah, we don't actually have anything in our code that says that there is a timeline, which the Department of Ecology is pushing in their recommendations, that we add a time frame or validity statement, essentially, right, that says after 5 years, the city can make that determination, but it's considered invalid.
Right.
So.
I think the Corps of Engineers, who's ultimately responsible for wetlands, has 5 years. But
Yeah, I believe that that's where it's coming from.
yeah.
Yeah. And then we also updated a lot of the additional activities allowed in wetlands. So basically those are activities that you don't have to get a critical areas report. It's usually educational, scientific research, very light, like normal routine maintenance of like houses or public facilities, and stormwater management facilities that are already existing, things that are already in place and you're just doing maintenance, or you're just kind of walking through and maybe taking a class through a wetland or something. You don't need a critical area report for that, as long as you're not actively, taking the plans and stuff like that. And then we also added some regulated uses and activities. So things like the removal and excavation and grading of land material of any kind, things like that. Pretty obvious, like dredging. You don't want those activities happening without a critical area report. And then we also included tree hazard language, which basically means that if there's a tree that's going to fall on your house or is going to cause a risk to the public or anything like that, if it's an emergency and you're like, it's gonna fall right now, you can actually you can fell it, and then you can come to the city and be like, hey, I had to take this down, what do I do now? And so it also has some instances where like, okay, cool, like this is what you have to do now, right? You have to plant another tree. You have to, there's nothing that you need to do for that. It's very rarely that, but I have seen that in some cases. Usually what it is you have to leave that tree there. Cool, you fell it, leave it there. It's not firewood, it's now a snag. It's gonna just stay there, and that's gonna help with the ecosystem so that there's no mitigation that you have that you have to do. And so it just allows for that. And then it also allows for emergencies and exceptions. The exceptions are specifically for public utilities. So if anything happens where a public utility needs to go in and make an emergency, like an emergency update or upgrade or fix or whatever, they can just do it. They don't have to worry about it. And it also encompasses private utilities as well. But the caveat to that is that they can't do anything to the riparian area or the critical area that would inhibit the natural functions. So if they are going to, right, if they're going to upgrade the facility, if they're going to do anything like that, then they have to go through the normal process and get a critical area report and do the mitigation. And then the emergencies is along the same line as the hazard tree, but it more falls towards almost anything. So if their house is falling or something like that, then they can take care of that and figure it out, and then they can come to the city and be like, okay, what do I need to do? So.
Do we have anything in our environmentally sensitive residential area that talks about like suggestions for building materials to not use or that kind of thing? Like I know that HUD and National Marine Fisheries have a programmatic agreement so that any HUD-funded project, you're not allowed to have exposed galvanized metal. You're not allowed to use copper roofing. You're not allowed to use the moss impregnated 3-tab roofing or whatever, like the composite roofing, because all of those things leach metals into surface water. I don't know if we have anything. I don't know if we need to
I
make
don't
a
think
law
we
about
do.
it, but maybe if there was a suggested, or maybe we do want to in the environmentally sensitive area. But that's for all HUD-funded projects, even like anywhere. So,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I just notice as I work on NEPA projects sometimes that are HUD funded, and I just think it's weird that the requirements for like a HUD funded house right next to another house that's being built are totally different in terms of what they can use as building materials, and they're pretty strict about it. You know, not using those, you know, galvanized and whatever, like those different things. So.
Yeah, I've worked as a evergreen coordinator on some projects, and the hoops that you have to jump through in regard to all of the building materials and all of the appliances and everything that goes into the house can be a lot.
But if this applies to critical areas, I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that there is any restrictions on building materials. That might be something that we could look, or that might be something that you guys are interested in looking into, which I can absolutely do.
I'd be interested if anybody else does that, at least in the, you know, in the environmentally sensitive area
Yeah.
by the creek. I mean.
I can definitely see if there's other jurisdictions that limit the building material types. And then the flood hazard area draft code was actually reviewed by the Department of Ecology, and he sent over that draft. So it's all of Ecology's recommendations and updates to become compliant with the NFIP to ensure that we get back into compliance.
So we're still not, right?
No,
not until
not
after this.
currently. Yeah. So until we adopt this, we're not currently. But he said that that all of his suggestions are the minimum standard to get us back into compliance. And so once it's adopted, we're good to go essentially.
Yes.
And so he knew that we were talking about it tonight, and that it's on the agenda to kind of push forward with everything else.
Is there anything shocking in the recommendations that would be different from kind of what we were doing?
There was nothing shocking in there to me. It was the same thing that most other jurisdictions are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's, 2 feet above the base flood elevation and things that are pretty normal in regard to building code and already enforced through the building code itself, but are just not explicitly laid out in our Yeah, so what we need to do is get it laid out in our municipal code to become compliant with the NFIP to make sure that we don't lose the flood insurance that goes that's provided to Tenino residents.
Yes, that's important.
It is important, yeah, especially considering what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Very timely.
Yeah. And then the last one was the zoning designations. None of that has changed since the last time you guys looked at it. I just wanted to make sure that you guys had it. I'll talk more in detail regarding that next month. Sorry, Adam. But you'll see it again. But nothing has changed since last time we've discussed it. What I wanted to make sure was that I got in front of you guys so that if you do have any comments, because I remember that you did have comments, and I believe I updated them, but it's been a minute since I've touched that document and I just sent it over. So if you have any comments or questions, you can either hold them until the next session, or you can provide them before and I can update it before the next session and we can talk about it then. Whatever you guys prefer is just fine for me. I just wanted to make sure that you guys had everything, so that you guys had time to provide comments and feedback and you don't feel so harried.
Okay,
Thank you for that.
yeah. Do you guys have any comments on the zoning stuff?
Not at this moment.
On the zoning, okay, so on the zoning changes, did I bring in I'm only mentioning this because one of the older planners that we worked with, they did a mock-up for us of some zoning changes that I think we all liked.
Oh, yeah.
Did I hand that
Yes.
document to you?
Oh, you found
I
it?
found it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well done.
If you did, it was a long time ago, but I believe
Okay.
that you're talking about Christina.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe I have access to all of Christina's documents that are in the file.
Okay.
Um,
I might take a picture of it and send it to you
yeah,
if I can find it
Yeah.
again. I'm pretty certain I can find it again. I kept it.
And
yeah.
that was about
I can
things
cross-check
that would
it.
be allowed outright in different
Yeah.
zones.
Yes.
That conversation.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll go home and look for that. I'll take a picture of it. I'll send it to you so that you have that. Hopefully that can be incorporated into whatever zoning changes do end up happening, because I did like those changes
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Um,
did it.
Yeah,
We
that sounds
discussed
good.
it.
Yeah. Ad nauseum. So
It is
Anyway.
possible that you did and that I already updated it, but like I said, it's been a hot minute since I've touched that document and I can't remember all the changes that I've made. They are redlined in there, so
Yes.
everything should be pretty obvious that has been changed or is recommended as changed, since it is a draft. But if you send that over, I will double check and make sure.
yeah.
And
I'll
the
look.
current version of the Ag Park overlay stuff is in here?
Yes.
Okay. And when is it appropriate, or is it ever gonna be appropriate for us to discuss the rezoning of that food bank building?
It's already
It's
being
done?
yeah. It's
Okay.
with right now, the main concern was the comp plan map. And it is rezoned on the comp plan map, and as soon as it's adopted, probably Q1 next year,
Okay.
it will be in effect that those are commercial.
What were
Okay.
they zoned as previously?
Residential for some reason? No,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't
It
know.
was city property before it was there.
There was like a mistake.
and it was still
Yeah.
residential,
Kind of.
so
But it doesn't matter.
yeah, it's strange.
It's like one small pocket of residential.
Okay.
That's all I
Anything else
have.
about that? No. All right. That's all you got?
That's all I have. And I've got some homework.
Close to the nighttime tea time now. Okay, Adam, under new business.
Under new business.
Sad to hear about your leaving, but excited for your new position. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So I guess just for the public record, so maybe we'll do effective end of the month, 12/31. I will be resigning from the Planning Commission, and I'll be joining the City Council. So not far away. I'll still see everything that comes through here, hopefully. So yeah, I'm excited. Thank you very much for bringing me up to speed on a lot of planning stuff. Thank you to Melissa for
Of course.
keeping us going through all of this, and to Matthew for keeping me in line when I have spicy thoughts. So
We balance each other well.
yeah. So anyway, this has been really great. It's really helped me kind of give back to the community in a way that I didn't think was going to be in my future when I showed up here in town a couple years ago, and well, I showed up in the city a few years ago. Anyway, so I've really enjoyed my time here, and I'm looking forward to being on the City Council. So thank you all.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Congratulations.
All right, well, thank you for that. There's another public comment period, but no comments, so with that, we're adjourned.